You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos were dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Well, you know it's a good day when you start doing the 9 teams in 9 weeks. It's the Rouge Radio podcast powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. It is episode 430. My name is Robert Dalton, live here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And for the time being, my good friend, Mr. Tony Allen, live from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Tony, how's it going, my man?
It is going excellent, other than I just dropped my microphone. I don't know if you heard that. Hopefully you didn't. Darn it.
I mean,
edit.
No, I pride myself on no edits in 2022.
All right, good. I like it.
How's it going? It's been, 2 months since we last did a show?
Yeah, actually, the last time I think we talked, I was in school for my job, and I am so jacked to say I passed all of my requirements, and I am now a ticketed journeyman electrician, so I'm very proud of myself.
Congratulations.
Add sound effects of applause. Just good for... I'm so proud of myself.
You just kind of just made it apparent that there's a lot of post-production work to do with the show. So
I'm just ruining your whole night here. But no, and honestly, joking aside, to me, I want this to be a thing. It'd be my dream that people just believe that it would become so common that Rouge Radio's 9 teams in 9 weeks was like the official kickoff to the Canadian Football League season. That's how much I love doing this. That's how much I wish this would get ingrained into the fabric of the Canadian Football League. That when re-release that first 9 teams in 9 weeks, people just tweet out like, "Oh my God, this is when I know the CFL season started," because Rouge Radio has started their 9 teams in 9 weeks.
Yeah, I just love it. Let's get into the actual podcast. First of which, let's get the regular banter out of the way. A lot of people are probably going to just want to, hey, what's up with the guys in the last 2 months? I hurt my shoulder and elbow, pretty much all of my right arm playing Football Unleashed as part of the Oculus gaming system.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, I knew I wasn't a good quarterback. At the tender age of 42, I knew that I never had talent, so I wasn't really expecting a lot. But I was kind of expecting, maybe some moderate arcade-style success as a quarterback. I am not having any of it at all. I play for a half hour a day, and after each time I'm like, why do I put myself through this? My arm, I feel like it belongs in a sling for like a month. You got it.
How much do you love the Oculus, though? How much do you love the Oculus?
I'm obsessed with it. The wife got it for the family for Christmas, and the kids started playing a lot. They downloaded. I think my wife downloaded poker. Kids got the Epic Roller Coaster game, which is, oh my God, I had so much motion sickness going on that. It is unbelievable. I am absolutely obsessed. I can't imagine going a day without actually, trying it out. I am going to wear it out. I don't know if there's some kind of warranty on this, just from using it every day of the week. But I downloaded. I don't, because I know that you wanted to do the.
I want you to get the fishing, get real VR fishing, and that way you and I can just sit out on a dock or a boat somewhere and chat and just fish. Because I have this dream of this casual, because you can record you can live cast your what you're playing on the Oculus, and I just have this dream of just us having this side show where it's just you and me fishing and just like casually talking about the Canadian Football League. We'll have like our serious show and then just like real fishing, like CFL fishing with Dalts and TA or some super cash. We bring in someone else and we just fish and talk the Canadian Football League. That's my dream. That's my dream side project.
It's and because we've been doing this show since 2013 together. It would be the only time that we could actually. I don't know if you could see one another or we could just see the avatar, the profile, virtually. Actually, seen each other.
You haven't found my guy. You haven't found me yet on there?
I haven't even bothered looking for it.
All right, I'll look you up.
I'll
look you up after the show.
Well, it's under my wife. I mean, we're getting too far into this. Talking about, hey, let's find each other's profile on his Oculus gaming system. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing, and I'm just obsessed with it. But I tell you, if you spend too much time on it, yeah, just be aware of the motion sickness if you're looking to get it. But it is just tremendous. Before we go forward, because there, one subject, and we didn't do an itinerary because it's usually kind of, why bother when we do our 9 teams in 9 weeks. But first, let's go into, these are the stats of the Rouge Radio listeners. These are the top countries that listen to our podcast. We've got your Canada, United States, France, Germany, Australia, United Kingdom, Senegal, Bermuda, Argentina, and Brazil. Gotta love the South American listeners that chime in. Mm-hmm. Maybe they want us to go 4 downs, but more on that in a bit. Top cities: Winnipeg, Montreal, Edmonton, Frankfurt, Calgary, Lethbridge, Victoria, British Columbia, Gatineau, Quebec, Adelaide, South Australia, and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Appreciate the Allen family downloading our podcast every week. Love it. Those are the top countries and cities that are listening to the Rouge Radio podcast. I mentioned it before we get into our topic du jour about the Ottawa Redblacks. I feel this is the topic that we do need to talk about because it just won't go away. Now, Randy Ambrosia, the commissioner of the CFL, adamantly said that there is not going to be a 4-down game. Despite, possible rule changes going into effect this year, that is not one of them. But a lot of people just refuse to let it drop. Your opinion on any possible rule changes going into 2022, in specific with gameplay. And I don't know if you want to touch on maybe a lot of people wanting to upgrade to the 4-down game.
I don't think there's. I think there might have been some smoke on 4 downs. Like every season, off season, you're going to talk about something, and I don't want to go off too much because this is something where I would most certainly rant, and we don't need to kick off the fun 9 weeks, 9 teams in 9 weeks with me just absolutely having a meltdown rant. But I can't say that it didn't come up. It wasn't a topic in the off season. You talk about everything, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing is off the table. You entertain everything. Now, had it ever gotten legs? Had it ever been considered? I don't know. There's allegations. There's statements made about Calgary, Toronto being interested in 4 downs. And it's tough after we had just gone through the CFL, XFL merger debacle for me to take certain sources seriously because, and this isn't an attack at Arash Madan because we know he has his own agenda against the Canadian Football League, whatever it is, but we even had very respectable guys, Dave Naylor, peddling the XFL, CFL merger, like straight up calling it a merger. And there was, it so much wasn't, it was never even close to a merger, but national media got a hold of it and they created a horrible image to the Canadian Football League, which it loves to do. And I'm sorry, you can't convince me that there isn't a general attempt to always keep the Canadian Football League down from a national media level. Locally in the CFL cities, media is always there to help out. But so after I had seen an off season where clear stories were made up about whatever the Canadian Football League and the XFL were talking about, like just clearly fabricated. Something came up, they ran with it, they started reporting it as fact, they started reporting, well, if someone talked about it, then clearly I'm justified as a reporter to report on it. And then after Arash Madani, basically, well, Ambrosi attacked Arash bounced back. It's like, I'm sorry, Arash, I can't take you seriously. I can't believe your word over his, especially under the excuse you gave on the tweet I saw that, well, someone said it, nobody denied it, so obviously I have an obligation to report it as a potential truth. And to me, that's just like, that's asinine. Just because nobody denied it, you're justified in amplifying it? To me, that just sounds like as a horrible, irresponsible journalism. And this isn't coming from some hump who sits on his couch and thinks he knows better. I've been in radio. I've been in radio and television. I was for almost 20 years. So you don't know more than me, Arash, about integrity in radio and in media, because I've been there too. And to simply try and hide behind an excuse of, well, nobody denied it, so sure, I should be allowed to say whatever I want to. That, to me, that was just, sorry, I'm doing it, I'm going off, but to me that was just horribly, just I can't even say irresponsible, it's just idiotic. Like, it's just stupid, it's just asinine. You're trying to justify your actions to make yourself sound like you're honorable, like you carry yourself with integrity, and nothing about that exchange showed integrity on his part. Am I defending Ambrosi? Did he have a part to play in it? Probably, but for me, that guy is a trigger for me, and I'm sorry, after the fabrication of a CFL XFL merger that ended up to be literally nothing and never had legs, you are not going to convince me that I should just blindly believe that all of this 4-down talk was ever serious.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'll just say is that, I mean, most of these rule changes that we go through is, I mean, people were talking about changing the gameplay, you know, as far as, you know, ratio and whatnot, because, you know, the narrative behind it is because they wanted to make more money in case, you know, 2020 happened again, where there wasn't fear of the CFL closing its doors forever. And I'm thinking to myself, then why are we going, like, are there people that are just, you know, they're on the fence of watching the CFL, but they're just waiting to add that extra down? And to me, listen, we saw over this weekend, aside from one game, now I didn't watch all of the games, I did kind of just peek in on a couple of plays, the new USFL Spring League. The broadcasting, the fans in the stands, or lack thereof in certain markets, I don't know if that league's going to survive. And if the NFL, yeah, and listen, these are games with 4 downs. The XFL has tried it twice and has failed. I mean, you could go blame the pandemic for the second turnaround, but I mean, this is, you know, what, owners with tons of, you know, deep pockets that they can afford to take that bump. The fact that this is always the go-to, we need to add a 4th down. Why? So that we could just be more like the NFL? I mean, the Spring League and the XFL are arguments why we should not add a 4th down. It's like, we have 2 examples. They're saying that just because you have 4 downs, that you're going to survive and you're going to make money. It's just stop it. We need to stop going that route. We need to have that out of our mindset and say, hey, listen, we need to think out of the box. Well, how is adding a 4th down thinking outside of the box? It's just kind of like, it's mind-boggling to me. It just does not make any kind of sense. You want to think outside of the box. There's plethora of opportunities, a lot of thoughts and ideas of thinking outside of the box. But I think going to the 4th down just seems to be the lazy route with some people. You know,
here's the thing. People that don't like the CFL are never going to like the CFL.
Yeah.
You're not going to win them over. A guy that tells you, maybe if you got 4 downs and shrunk the field, then I would watch. He is lying. He is never going to watch. People that hate the Canadian Football League, you will never win them over because they have been so brainwashed. They're so set in their ways. They will never, ever come to the Canadian Football League. And when people tweet out things as well, like look at all of Nickelodeon, what the NFL does with Nickelodeon. Look how they're having these shows on basic cable. Now, we've had the conversation as well that the Grey Cup should be on, standard television like CTV, other than, fine, we can have that conversation. But even talking about how the Canadian Football League fails to reach a younger demographic. Well, the younger demographic is still not buying their kids. The demographic is still not buying CFL tickets. And that kid is going to go to his dad. If you do find a way to appeal to younger kids and younger adults, and they say, Dad, take me to a Canadian Football League game, that dad is going to say, no, the CFL sucks. I'm not wasting my money on a Canadian Football League. Going after the younger demographic is going to do very little to help you as well, when again you've got generations after generations being fed the Canadian Football League is a lesser Canadian Football League. Having 4 downs isn't going to convince somebody that doesn't like the CFL to start watching. Going for a younger demographic and going after kids isn't going to get them to the Canadian Football League if they go to their parents, their dad, and say, Dad, I want to go to a CFL game, because no, CFL's a joke. I'm not wasting my money on that. There's an attitude that needs to change in this country, and gimmicks, advertising campaigns, slogans, getting in bed with Nickelodeon or YTV or something like that is not going to get a younger demographic. It's not going to get new people to the Canadian Football League. You need to start changing the attitude that Canadians are raised with to get them to go to the Canadian Football League games.
Exactly. Before we get to the interview with Jeanine Ritchot, who's joined us earlier today, but we're going to show you a snippet of the interview. The full interview will be broadcasted on our YouTube page. This podcast is sponsored by Manscaped at manscaped.com. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Rouge at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code Rouge. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. We sat down with Jeanine Ritchot. We'll call her JR because apparently I still mess up her name. But she joined us to talk about the Ottawa Redblacks, and here's a small snippet of what she had to say. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about, the current regime doesn't really have anything to do with 2019, but speaking as a Bomber fan, right? And because you had those horrible years, those Joe Mack years, the Kyle Walters comes in, you kind of, you're just frustrated with the first 2 years, even though it was only 2 years under Kyle Walters, but it's like 7 years since you became competitive. I reference this because this is Paul LaPolice's second year as a head coach in Ottawa, Sean Burke's first year as general manager in Ottawa. But when you look back since 2018, they went 3-15 in 2019, obviously no year in 2020, and then 3-11 last year. I don't know if you guys looked at your schedule, but you got the reigning back-to-back Grey Cup champions for the first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. How much of a leash does Paul LaPolice have? Should they open up the season 0-2, and not only 0-2, but maybe not look good doing it?
Well, and this is where I've actually drawn a lot of comparisons to the situation of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Because when Mike O'Shea was hired as head coach, he still had a rough couple seasons as head coach in terms of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers record. But the team, the ownership stuck with the vision. And the Bombers became, it took 6 years, but the Bombers became what the Bombers became, which is back-to-back Grey Cup champions. And it was built, season by season, and there were improvements every single season. So I've kind of, in my mind, made that parallel in Ottawa. What we need to do is kind of what the Bombers did 7 years ago. And so with that in mind, I think LaPolice has a little bit of rope, because at the end of the day, look, and we've said it on our podcast, Mikhail and I, we won free agency, but winning free agency doesn't matter. What matters is how that translates in regular season. I think it's fair for us to expect that we're going to have, a much better record this season, but I don't think it's fair for Redblacks fans to expect that we're going to see a repeat of 2015 and 2016. So in my mind, you've now got to stick with the vision. given us the tools, given the coaches the tools. If we hit 500 this season, that is a massive improvement over 2019 and 2021, and that's something that we should be proud of because we're building on it. And that's how teams succeed and rebuild. It's year over year, season over season. This instantaneous magic is not going to happen no matter how big the names are. They've got to gel together as a unit. So in my mind, I think he's got some rope, and I think there's a vision that OSEG and the general manager and the coaches are crafting. And I think Paul LaPolice will have the latitude and, more than one more season to try to turn this boat around.
Referencing a previous question, because it's easy, the Ottawa Redblacks went through all of free agency. Obviously, they won free agency because they had to. You just couldn't stay the course based on what they had in 2021. Notwithstanding Jeremiah Masoli, because he's the quarterback, who's the one guy that the Ottawa went through free agency that you're looking forward to having not only a breakout season, but maybe bringing some stability to this Red Black franchise?
Oh, what a good question. The one guy, it's so hard to narrow down to one guy because they
63
so
guys. Yeah,
much.
it's really tough. Yeah.
Like 4 offensive linemen, and we had such a bad O-line in the last 2 seasons. But I will say this. I will say that one of my biggest complaints, it hasn't actually even been the quarterback position, hasn't been my biggest complaint personally over the last 2 seasons. It's been the tools around the quarterback. So am I happy that we brought in Masoli? Yeah. Like I'm on Team Evans, by the way, Caleb Evans. I think that kid has a lot of potential and I want to see him grow. And the fact that there's a veteran that he can now develop under is really great. But you could bring in, the best quarterback in the league and not give that guy tools around him and ask Michael Riley what happens in that situation, right? So the one thing that I was honestly most excited about, which I never thought I would say, was the O-line. And I can't point to any of the, 4 guys that we brought in as being the key, but just the fact that we recognized no quarterback can stay upright if they don't have an O-line, and they can't hit their receivers, and the running back can't get through, and all these things that were just such a hot mess on offense. So the fact that we, realized and then went after, I'm sorry, Tony, we went after, one of your best O-linemen in Calgary, and we went after some really big names on the O-line that I'm pretty excited to see how this will shape up coming out of training camp.
Yeah, you can pressure Tony on all Calgary Stampeders. He will not care. He probably doesn't even know because, like I said, he's all in on the Calgary Flames
all in on
this
the
year.
Flames.
Yeah,
tunnel vision right now.
Yeah,
we'll see.
He's like,
historically, it hasn't been a long distraction.
Like the Calgary Flames could just get eliminated in the Western Final or Western Conference Final, and he'd be like, hey, okay, now I can focus on the stand. Hey, what happened with Bo Levi? Why is he? What's going on?
How good is he though, right? Yeah. Let's talk about how good Bo Levi Mitchell is.
It is your favorite thing to talk about, I know.
All right. He's so good. It's ridiculous.
Let's we talked about. I guess we didn't really talk about the further on previous shows, but we talked about the PR makeover that they had in Edmonton with their new CEO. Not really a huge issue with Ottawa, but you don't really want any kind of bad distractions. You signed a guy by the name of Jacob Ruby, who obviously had some issue. Maybe not all the information has been let forth and whatnot in regarding to his vaccination status and whatnot. Yeah. But knowing what happened with him with the Elks last year, is there any kind of maybe any temperamental feelings from Our Nation? By the way, kudos on trolling Saskatchewan Rider fans by throwing out Our Nation earlier, and kudos for that. Is there any kind of feelings towards Mr. Ruby when the news came out that the Redblacks had signed him?
Yeah, well, it was our first free agency signing, and I have to say, guys, I was kind of shocked because I know the story and I know about the vaccine status and why he was no longer playing in 2021 and the controversy around it, and look, people have I live in Ottawa, the city that was overtaken by, a convoy for many, many, many days because people have very passionate feelings about everything related to the pandemic. So there's a lot of feeling about pandemic and vaccines and all the rest of it. But it didn't even make the news here. I don't think anybody paid any attention to who Jacob Ruby was and why he didn't play in 2021. And I think the only people who knew were nerds like, me and Michaela, and I do another radio show in French in the community, and Nicolas. We were like the three people that were talking about it. And at the end of the day, my understanding is that, Jacob sat down with the commissioner and he sat down with leadership in the Ottawa Redblacks and talked about, what he had done and his understanding about the seriousness. And at the end of the day, the decision was made to give him another chance. And it hasn't been news here at all. And maybe it doesn't need to be news. Like, he's made his amends. He's spoken to the higher ups in the league and accepted responsibility for what he did. And ultimately, we've all made mistakes. Some of them have been more grave than others. But I think the mark of a person is, do you accept responsibility for the mistakes you've made? And if that's the case and he's made his mistake and he's now compliant with the policies of the league, then, he's served his time, so to speak. And but it honestly didn't, nobody talked about it. It was really, I just don't think I don't think the story was as widely known out here in Ottawa as it was when it, made the news back in whenever it was that it, it became known in Edmonton that he had, well, at first didn't everybody think he had faked a vaccine passport, but it just turned out that he had lied about it. I don't think people knew. And so it really didn't make the news here. And now, him and whatever 5 other of the O-linemen that they brought in are going to have to compete for it in training camp.
I just have one more question. I guess it's I don't know if it's another heavy one after the questions you just asked, but you do make up one half of an all-female Canadian Football League podcast. And earlier this year, we've been friends for probably quite a while now on social media, and I know this is something that is important to you to get out there. And the BC Lions added a female to their coaching staff, assistant to the defensive coach, and to see something like that, and something that I know is something important. You see more representation for females and inclusivity for females in football. What does seeing something like that mean to you?
It's amazing. It means everything to me. Like, when I was a little girl watching football, I never had the opportunity to see a woman on the bench coaching. Like, I never had that opportunity. And so I never saw room for myself in a professional sport in any way. And Michaela and I are podcasters. Michaela used to play hockey as well. I'm less of an athlete. I'm more of an armchair athlete than anything else. But our point is, women belong in every facet of sport, whether it's players, whether it's refs, whether it's on sports radio talking about it, or whether it's coaching. And the fact that a woman is now, coaching a professional league or a professional team in the league that I love, it means everything. Like, little girls are going to go to games with their parents and they're going to see a woman for the first time on the field, and not as an athletic therapist or not as the person bringing a water bottle, but as the person helping call the plays. And that's everything. Like, representation is everything. And the league is starting to do a little bit more. Like, they've just partnered with KPMG to every team will bring into training camp this year a woman, not on the coaching staff, but on the administrative staff. And they're going to be working and mentoring women to, get into the football management aspect. These are things that didn't exist when I was a kid. And so I didn't know that I could aspire to these things. So it means a lot to me to see it, and my hat's off to the BC Lions. And ultimately, I hope that one day this is so normal that none of us have to talk about it ever again, because it's just going to be on every team, and it's not going to be a question for any of us.
I know I have a very strong, independent daughter, and it is tough for me. She is. Well, listen, I feel like I know what your dad went through there, Jeanine, just with my daughter. But having said that, but I mean, and to be a little serious again, like, we'll watch hockey, I'll watch baseball, I watch all kinds of sports, and she does ask me, like, Dad, is there a league for this for women? And I just never know what to tell her, because how do you answer that? Say, well, men are basically bags of shit, and we just don't respect this, you know?
Yeah, it's really, but it's changing everywhere. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the San Francisco Giants game. I forget who they were playing against, but their first base coach got ejected, and for the first time in the history of Major League Baseball, a woman came out to replace at first base coach, and like, she got a standing ovation when she walked on the field. These things really matter, and you know, for your daughter's sake, I hope that that those are the stories that will stick with her, and she'll know that, you know, just keep trucking, because it's starting to change. And you know, obviously a lot of the times I think it's slow, but you know, I think about what we're doing here and how open you all have been. Like, all the podcasters across the CFPN have been so open to having Michaela and I here. We've never felt any resistance, and to me, that's what you should be telling your daughter, that there are people like you and others out there who are really opening their arms to women participating in sport at every level, and that's, you know, that's honestly what gives me hope. I don't want to sound cheesy, but that is what gives me hope.
No, that's perfect. If it had been any other night, because we're all turkeyed up here on Easter Sunday, we can continue talking about this for forever. But you have your bed to hit. We have ours, and we still have more of the show to hit. Before we let you go, Jeanine, as we always do every year when we do our 9 teams in 9 weeks, give us your 2022 prediction of the Ottawa Redblacks. Where do you find them in the standings and bonus points for the exact record?
So I knew you'd ask me this, and when I was walking the dog this morning, I was like going through free agency for all the Eastern teams, and I was like, okay, Montreal didn't do all that much. So I think the Eastern competition this year is definitely Hamilton. I see us coming in, and Toronto, I don't know. I can't wait to hear your show on Toronto, because I can't can anybody figure out Toronto? I can't figure out Toronto. Like, they had all these big names last year, but they were shit until they brought in Chris Jones, and now Chris Jones is gone. So here's my bold prediction. We're going to be second in the East, and we're going to have like an 11-7 record.
Wow. Whoa. I got to be honest.
Very bold.
I got to be honest. I knew Ottawa would improve, right? Like, they just had to. And in my mind, I was going through, okay, maybe they'll go 7-11. Then I went through the schedule yesterday, and I was like going through every one of them. I have Ottawa in second. I have them at 10-8.
Okay, we're not that far off then.
And I just kind of surprised myself, because Tony insists that I hate Ottawa Redblacks.
You do. That was horrible. Every Redblack fan was in tears.
It's fair to say that many of us who listen to Rouge Radio wonder if you have a vendetta against me.
Well,
I would assume he does, just by the way he pronounces your name.
Oh, jeez.
Like that, you didn't even try.
Oh, it's all good. Like, I think we've had this chat before. I'm just JR. Just call me JR.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you listen to my wife, there, you know, we can have this chat all over again. I'm not going to remember anything. It's exactly what my wife says.
10-8 is, I got to admit that I wasn't expecting that from you. I was expecting to be pretty laughed at for my very bold prediction. But I just, honestly, you know what, it comes down to Toronto. I just don't know what to expect out of Toronto.
You know what, that's exactly what it is, and you'd be surprised to know that I actually have them going 2-16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, McLeod, Bethel Thompson, I know. Explain McLeod.
Yeah.
I know. Actually, that's better too. I thought Dalts would have Ottawa having to forfeit all of its games because they were so horrible. The league would actually make Ottawa forfeit. That's where I thought Dalts was going with this. Well, that's how much he hates Ottawa.
Well, when we finish the actual show, my true feelings will come out.
Well, fair enough.
All right. A big thank you for Jeanine, who took time out of her busy, sleepy schedule as we're recording Easter night, and happy Easter to all those who celebrate, and good luck to those who had kids that are just diving into chocolate like Scrooge McDuck into gold coins. Tony, I know you're a little bit more of a better father than I would probably have their kids all tucked into bed at this point. Mine are still up Unfortunately, eating chocolate till the day is young. Let's go to the Ottawa Redblacks, as we are, like we said, focusing on the 9 teams in 9 weeks. The Ottawa Redblacks this week, last year, they went 3-11, 224 points for, 384 points against, 1-6 at home, which means they went 2-5 on the road, only winning against the Edmonton Elks. In or gone, everybody. And in is everybody, because the long list of people that they signed and let go is just too long. We just might as well say everybody. Tony, I'll let you stop. Where do you see the Ottawa Redblacks? Give us a little synopsis of your thoughts of the Redblacks going forward in the 2022 season.
Well, I'll tell you, my journey through the CFL schedule, setting up this 9 teams in 9 weeks, seems to reflect differently of what I think of the Ottawa Redblacks, opposed to maybe what I thought their acquisitions in the offseason were. But I guess I was actually pretty generous to the Redblacks. I really liked the Mazzoli acquisition, and it's a quarterback-driven league. There's a cliche that you're going to hear constantly when it comes to the CFL, and personally, I think this is the best they've looked at quarterbacks since Henry Burris. Insert your little jokes here, but I mean, he is, and honestly, given the choice between Dane Evans and Mazzoli, I think I probably would have leaned towards Mazzoli. So he was the surprise that I thought Hamilton let go, and Ottawa is going to benefit from his experience. The guy's been to Grey Cup, so he knows what he's doing. He can lead, he can win. He struggled when we started last season, and I'll admit that a lot of evidence there doesn't back up. But again, if it starts at your quarterback, it's going to filter down, and I guess maybe I have faith it'll gel for Ottawa. Maybe it's just you want it to gel for Ottawa. And, you know, when I looked at head-to-head matchups, one of the things I did talk about, you know, now you've got Mazzoli going up against Bo Levi Mitchell. Now I've got Mazzoli going up against Trevor Harris. Now I've got Mazzoli going up against Homer McLeod Thompson. And, you know, who can I really honestly take this? We've got Mazzoli going against whatever they're going to start in BC. And I guess, you know, when it comes to that leadership under center, I swung a lot. The pendulum swung to Redblacks more than maybe I had expected myself doing that. And, I mean, I actually had them ending up, because I know your answer based on the interview we did, and I hadn't said anything, but I ended up with a 10-8 record for the Ottawa Redblacks, and according to my standings, that puts them on top of the East in my world.
Oh wow! Oh my God! It just hit me. The Hamilton Tiger fans are not going to love you.
No, they're not.
That's the one takeaway. It's like, oh, screw what you think about Ottawa. You think Hamilton is going to lose that many games? Listen, I think Hamilton's the beast of the East this year. We can question about the quarterback. Did they let go of the wrong quarterback? Did they keep the right one and whatnot? I just think from an organizational standpoint, I think Hamilton is the model franchise on the eastern side. That being said, and I've said this in previous podcasts, and I know there's a joke that Dalts hates Redblacks and Redblack fans and whatnot. It's far from the case. What I want people to do, and I'm going to turn this around pretty quick, what I wanted people to do is to just temper your expectations. Because the first thing that we do is that when we win free agency on paper, we tend to think, oh my God, we're going to kick ass. We're going to go balls to the wall, 18-0, Grey Cup, here we come. But then you look at the positional breakdown. Okay, defensive backs, okay, they're okay. They got Sherrod Baltimore, Ty Cranston, Randall Evans, Justin Howell, Money Hunter, maybe Abdul Kane, depending on how he's going to come back. Patrick Levels, Antoine Pernod's coming back for another year. There's a lot of options. Kwaku Boateng on the defensive lineman, Lorenzo Molden, Devon Coleman, you go look at Rasheed Davis, Cleon Lang. it's a pretty formidable defensive lineman. You look on their offensive lineman. We mentioned what's his face? I forgot. Jacob Ruby. You got him. You've got Randy Richards came out of retirement. You've got Hunter Stewart, Eucomber Williams. You've got, of course, the new quarterback. You've got all these. The new what's his face? William Powell, running back, and of course you got Darvin Adams, B.J. Cunningham, R.J. Harris is back, Shaq Evans. A phenomenal top to bottom roster. I don't want to say that they have a weak spot, and I don't want to say that they have a strong spot. But you look at the positional breakdown and compare them to other teams. Theoretically, the Ottawa Redblacks should probably be. I mean, you look at the quarterback. Are they better than what Hamilton has? Are they better than is Mazzoli better than Vernon Adams? That's debatable. Running back William Powell is getting older. Is he better than William Stanback? Is he better than Don Jackson? That's debatable. Receivers, are they better? I mean, we forgot to even mention Jalen Acklin. Going to Ottawa, but are they still better than what Hamilton has? Are they better than what Toronto has? Are they better? I mean, Gino Lewis and Jake Weineke in Montreal, or do they have better? Long story short, positional by position breakdown, I don't know if they have a best group in the Eastern. But when I went each game, each week, having Ottawa, the team of Ottawa going up against Toronto, going up against Hamilton, going up against Montreal, and of course, starting this, I have them finishing 0-2, starting 0-2. I just think that having this whole new reflip of a roster and going up against the back-to-back Grey Cup, that's a tough schedule to have. But I do have the Ottawa Redblacks finishing 10-8 as well. I think that while they don't compare well by position to other teams in the East, as a team, the only thing that maybe might hurt them is Devontae Dedmon's not there. Who are they going to have returning kicks? Because that was primarily their offense. What are they going to do if Mazzoli stinks up the joint in the first couple of weeks? Is Caleb Evans ready to take this team? Is he ready to take over in case Mazzoli's hurt? If Mazzoli falters, if they end up, or what have you? There's a lot of things, there's a lot of questions that we have. But as Jeanine said, I think Ottawa finishes second if Montreal doesn't get their act together like we want them to from the 2019 season. And also depends on what Toronto does. I have Toronto finishing fourth in the East, and that might surprise you, and we'll talk more about that when we talk Argos. But this team, by position, like I said, I just can't say it enough, by position, does not have the best players, does not have the best position. But by God, if you look at this team and compare it to a team as a whole to others, second place in the East is not out of the question. It really isn't. And obviously, it's an obvious improvement. You can't get worse than what they did in 3-11 in 2021. So Tony, go ahead, lay out your jokes about how I hate the Redblacks.
No, we have the same record. Same record, so it's all good.
Yeah. I guess Terry Williams would be their returner, but I mean, that's a significant drop. I mean, of all free agent replacements that you have to go from Devontae Dedmon to Terry Williams, that's probably the one thing that they'll miss is the field position that Dedmon gave Redblacks offense. So I mean, that's one thing you have to be like I said, temper your expectations. If they fall, don't come at me saying, "Hey, but wait a minute, Dalts, you picked them to go 10-8." No, it's not a sure thing. That's just more of a prediction. But anything else you want to talk about before we end this week's show? Before we go to the I guess the final thought.
Yeah, only to circle around again and plead to all the CFL detractors, the people that don't like the league, to think that we're the problem. I just want to say, before you tweet out when one of these spring football leagues come out and you love the rules that they're doing that the NFL doesn't, and that you love that they've got a great national football television deal with a network that's just exactly what the CFL needs. And before you start questioning what are CFL players, what's the CFL going to do for players, where are they going to get players? This is such a threat. Give this 2 or 3 years, and the CFL, they could really learn before you start tweeting stupid shit out like that. There is only one pro football league that's ever been able to coexist with the National Football League for decades, literally decades after decades. Before you start telling the CFL what it should be adopting to be more competitive, try to let this league make it through its first season. Let's see if it could even get to its championship weekend before you start telling the CFL what it needs to take from these upstart leagues to be successful against the National Football League. Because for like 100 years, we're the only league that's ever been able to do it. So before you start tweeting out what the CFL needs to do from a marketing standpoint, from a television standpoint, make sure that league can even get to its championship weekend. Because I think between two versions of the XFL, the Players League, whatever that nonsense was, and this USFL, they've only played, between all 4 leagues combined, have only played 1 championship game. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, and I hate to take too much away from the topic at hand, which is the Ottawa Redblacks as part of our 9 teams in 9 weeks. But yeah, we just
Go Redblacks.
Yeah, it's just we're inundated with all these shots of, well, like you touched on it. I don't want to do just a double up on it, but yeah, it's just kind of, it irks me.
Go right ahead, do it. People need to hear it.
Yeah, it's like every time there's a spring league coming up, and we're like, okay, well, what's going to happen with the CFL? The same thing that's happened for the past 108 years. Gotta let you
Dads,
know.
Men, stop teaching your sons and your daughters that the CFL sucks. Stop blaming the CFL for getting its own way. Stop blaming the CFL for having a poor content. Stop blaming everything about the CFL and start teaching your goddamn kids that the CFL is something to be respected. Stop raising them to think that they deserve the NFL over the Canadian Football League. You want to see this league go somewhere? Step the goddamn up and start teaching your kids to respect this country. Stop blaming other things and start supporting the Canadian Football League.
There we go. That's a perfect way to end this week's podcast. Next week, we focus on the Edmonton Elks. Hopefully, we'll find someone from the Turf District to come join us. Looking forward to really talking about the new CEO, Victor Cui, who just came out of nowhere and just gave the Edmonton Elks franchise just like a breath of fresh air, and I just love it. Looking forward to talking about it. You can find us on Twitter. You can find myself at Rouge Dalts, Tony at Tony Rouge, and of course our podcast can be found at Rouge Radio. Of course, we're looking forward to the full interview with Jeanine on our YouTube page. Hopefully it'll be out first thing Monday morning, and this show will be hopefully out sometime maybe Monday, Tuesday. You can look forward to all your podcast applications that you have: Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, what have you. It is available for your pleasure. First dad joke of our 9 teams in 9 weeks. Tony, are you ready?
Yes, good, because I brought the spirit down, so bring it back up.
Okay.
I brought morale down. Bring it back up.
Why is the mushroom always invited to parties?
Why?
He's just a fun guy.
I saw that one, but I figured I would just play along my role. So I saw the fun guy coming, so I figured I'd just play my role.
There we go. All right, for Tony, I'm Dalts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.